Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jack Lion here again today. We're going to talk about Max, but today we're going to talk about how to build an external object for Max. So this is an object that you create using C code that works within Max. So it's pretty cool if you ask me, but there's a bit of a learning curve, especially if you're like me and you're new to programming. Like I spent the past week working on this because I really wanted to nail it down and fill in this gap of knowledge for anyone else out there who might be in a similar position to me, where you want to get into making your own externals or maybe learn DSP programming through this somehow. I think that this alongside maybe something like Juice would be a great way to get into learning DSP programming. So that's sort of my motivation here. And as well, I had a lot of questions after I watched this video. I recommend checking it out because it'll give you like a basic overview of like the SDK as well as some other details that I won't be covering. But yeah, I had a lot of questions after I watched it. So my goal here is to also answer some of those questions that I had for anyone else who might be wondering similar things. All right, so let's get started. We're gonna find our way to the Cycling 74 Max SDK repository and specifically version 8.2. Now I'm gonna copy this link here and hover over to my terminal window, and we're going to say git clone and then paste that link. All right, and you're gonna let it do its thing, and then under your user library sort of pathway, yeah, under users, and then this is my account here. This should pop up, the Max SDK. Okay, so here we have it, and we're actually gonna say cd max-sdk, and then we're going to say git submodule update --init --recursive. And so far this is nothing new, but once that is finished, what you're going to do is make your way over to the source code here. And today we're just going to do a simple MSP thing. So we're going to make a multiplier, a signal multiplier specifically, using this simple MSP source code as a template. I think that's what it was intended as. It kind of gives you the basic structure of an MSP object. So we're going to duplicate that and rename it to multi-tilde. And we're going to rename the source code to multi-tilde as well. So this .c file right here. Okay. And for now, you can close that. And we're going to hover back over to our terminal. And now we can proceed with make dir build cd build and then cmake -G xcode ... All right, now let it run, let it do its thing. What's going to happen is this build folder we just created is going to populate. Okay, it's going, and done. So if we look in here, we have this Max SDK Xcode project. So we'll open that up, and here it is. So I'm just gonna say automatically create schemes. I'm not quite sure what that means. Again, I am a beginner, but it seems to work fine. And what we're gonna do is find our way over to the source code. Yeah, so we have our multi-tilde thing we just created. Now, right now, it's identical to the simple MSP object. All right, so what we have here is a basic MSP project. So we have our class or the object state, this structure here, type def struct. And, these are the method prototypes. These are basically in C programming, how we declare we're going to use a function that we created below. So these functions, like if we look up simple MSP underscore new, we find that somewhere down here. Yeah, simple MSP underscore new. So like this prototype thing just means that we're declaring that we're going to use that in our main program. Okay, so this is the global class pointer variable, which I don't think we're going to really mess with too much. And then we have this ext main. This is kind of the main program. However, we're going to be focusing on this DSP perform thing, or yeah, it's perform 64. basically this is the performance routine. This is where we actually tell it what we want to do with the audio according to maybe like the inlets. So um, let's get started turning this into a signal multiplier, because right now this is performing an offset to the value that's coming in. So what you see here is out L, that's the outlet, okay? That is equal to this inlet plus the offset of X. So like that is pretty much declared in this function here. And, you know, we've declared that double over here, but we actually aren't going to be using the offset. What we want to do is create two inlets that we can use to multiply each other with, okay? So I'm going to walk you through how to do that now. So there's a few like syntactical things that we're going to do along the way. But first, I wanted to kind of show you how it works in terms of simply creating more inlets. So first, what we need to do is come to this simple MSP new function. Okay. Now here it says the inlet's argument of number of inlets is required. So uses 0 if you don't need inlets. What they're talking about is this thing here. This is telling us what each inlet or how many inlets we're going to use. So we're going to use 2. So I just simply change the 1 to a 2. And we come down here, you see these declarations of these variables. Well, this is an inlet here. So what I'm going to do is create another inlet. I'm going to name this one in R. And it's going to be the inlet of index 1. So we see here it says we get audio for each inlet of the object from the ins argument. That's what this is, ins. So that's what we see here, and we're simply indexing them, okay? So we have inlet 1 at index 0 and inlet 2 at index 1. Makes sense? So let's see. Next, what we can do is come down here, and I'm going to copy this. We're going to delete this here. And we're going to say asterisk in capital R plus plus. Now, I'm not quite sure what the plus plus means in terms of this. What my guess is that we're incrementing this since it's at audio rate somehow, but that's just my best guess. So I don't want to say anything incorrect or inaccurate on that. However, it is important, I think, that we keep the syntax sort of consistent for now. And yeah, so like I think we can move on now. There's a lot that we need to do still in this. So I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top here. And we're going to start to want to rename a lot of these things. So wherever we see simple MSP, I'm going to name it to multi. Okay. Now, actually, before I proceed, I'm going to let you know, I'm going to leave these simple MSP function names as they are, because as you'll see, it doesn't really matter what the function names are as long as we call upon the method properly and as long as everything stays consistent. But what does matter is if we change these. So somehow or another, you know, this structure all correlates. So I think that my theory is that it needs to be congruent with the name that we give the source code, or like the name of the object or whatever, something along those lines. I'll correct myself in a later video, or maybe someone can correct me and fill in some of my gaps of knowledge below. Please feel free to. But I'm going to walk you through how to make this thing work. So that's the first thing we need to do is declare that multi. We can actually comment out this line because, again, we're not going to use the offset. And because of that, I don't think we're going to use this either. So we can comment this out too. Okay, so now what we can do is this can be t underscore multi. And then everywhere we see t underscore simple MSP here, just replace that with t underscore multi. And we can move on from here. And then this simple MSP class can become multi-class. Let's see. Now we need to replace that. And another thing is we can comment out this line. We actually don't need that because that deals with the floating point value that's associated with the offset. So go ahead and comment that out. we're going to change this to multi tilde, because every time we create a new one, it needs to know that it's named multi. I think that that's what this is saying. This is the name of the class multi. And here we can keep this as it is, because these are the function names. So remember, we can keep the function names as they are. But if you wanted to replace these with multi, just to keep it consistent, as you probably would if you were making your own external, then you would have to replace the method prototype as well as the actual like functions name, just to keep it all connected and linked. But moving on, we're going to now rename this simple MSP class to multi class. We change this to t-multi, t-multi, and then this can become multi-class. And we're gonna replace this with t-multi as well, even though we're not really calling upon that. And then simple MSP assist, change that to multi. And then here as well, t-multi, we need to change this addition operator to a multiplier. We don't need this because that's again the float. I missed one here. So this thing right here needs to also be t-multi, I think. So let's see. I think now that I've checked myself, I'm convinced that everything should be good. So let's go ahead, and before we build it, we have to actually target it. So I'm just gonna look up the name of it just because it's a long list and select that. So let's see what comes up here. No member named offset. Okay, so yeah, I can just comment that out because we don't need it. And let's go ahead and build. Cool, so we get build succeeded. All right, so whenever we make a build, we go over to the externals folder within the max-sdk, and we see our multi-object. So I'm gonna place that on my desktop for now. And what I'm gonna do is, we don't need this anymore. I'm just going to open up a new Finder window, go over to the desktop, and I'm gonna pull up my documents because that's where my max8 folder is, which is where my packages folder is. So this is where my max is looking at to actually find externals and abstractions and things like that. So I'm gonna place that there. And I already have one in there from last night. I'm just gonna replace that. And let's open up Max now. So if you already had Max open, go ahead and close it and reopen it. So we're gonna open up a new patcher here. Let's see what happens when we call upon multi. There we go. There it is in all of its glory. So let's play with it a little bit. Let's pull out a scope. And maybe I'll get a few out, because what we're gonna do is, after we create our DAC with our start message and our stop message, what we're going to do is create a cycle object at 40 hertz and connect that to that multi as well as to this scope, and then a cycle object at 80 hertz. So connect that to that inlet, connect the outlet to a scope like so, and let's start the audio. Okay, so we should get signal multiplication. So let's try a lower numbers here. So as you can see, the signals on the left and right create an entirely different signal in the middle here. So maybe I'll try something like 10. Yeah, that's nice and clear. So you can clearly see these clean sine waves at different rates kind of interacting and multiplying in this way. So let's see what that sounds like. It's pretty low, so let's try something higher. So 40 and 80. Pretty cool, I think. So our multiply object works. So just to kind of recap everything before we wrap up here, I ignored a lot of the details that are in here because I think that like my goal is to just get you started so that you can have the confidence in a sort of idea of a workflow in order to get into this. So my recommendation would be to look at the the simple MSP source file, look at the simple max file, simple jitter if that's a thing. All that stuff is probably your key to getting in the door here. Now, there's documentation as well if you just look up like max API. So this is pretty decent resource. So you can get an idea of what's possible out there. And there's also the forums as well as the Discord and all that. So basically though, here's an overview. So we have this structure here, which we have to rename to multi, and we have to rename all the T underscore types, or I don't know if they're variables. Let's see. There's a way to look. So I'd say that those are type declarations. Yeah, so these are like a custom like data type, I think, within the Max SDK. So this T symbol, T multi, everything with T underscore needs to be, I think, replaced with the name, and we have to call our class, and it's all connected to this like class structure basically. So like there's a couple places where we say like multi-class or the class this or T underscore multi. But only if it's like the T underscore simple MSP thing. So like that's because that's the name of the simple MSP template that we're grabbing from. The reason that I didn't rename these functions again is because as long as it doesn't matter what the functions are called, they're gonna do the same thing regardless. So as long as the names are consistent, those don't matter. These are what you, I think, need to change, or at least make sure that the class names line up. Someone who knows more about C might be able to kind of answer to that in the comments below. But basically, we could sort of hack our way through this thing and create our own objects. I tried, and it would build without me having to like rename all of these. But when it built, it wouldn't work in Max. So I had to dig a little deeper, and that's when I realized that I wasn't renaming the right things. So, and also it's just a bit tidier just to keep everything named the same. Like I think if I was going to create my own external, I would be calling all of these like multi instead of simple MSP. But we would get an error right now if we were to do that. So I'm not going to do that today. And then moving forward, this is our main program. I think this has to do with the instantiation. Yeah, object instantiation. So this, I believe, is where we deal with certain things that have to do with like the object working in Max and being recognized as an object. And then this looks like, yeah, this is like where we add inlets and outlets. And I guess this assist thing is just sort of like giving you information on the inlets and stuff like that. So if you hover over them in Max, they're supposed to say what they are. And then we have simple MSP DSP64. Yeah, so this DSP64 thing, this registers a function for the signal chain. So basically, this is saying is that like, we're going to actually be able to add this to our chain of DSP. So like the signal of actual signal processing, like that's going to allow us to connect this object with Max's internal system for that. And then this perform is actually how we're going to interact with the signal coming in. And the way we're choosing to do that is by setting the output equal to the input times the other input. Okay, so I hope that was clear. I hope that this helps somebody. I had a blast figuring this out, and I'm going to have even more fun making my own externals in the future. So perhaps if this is something you guys are into, then I'll make some more tutorials. But in the meantime, happy patching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked the video or if you want to see more videos like this. The best way to support the channel is through Patreon, as this is a viewer-funded channel. Any support goes directly back into research and development so that I can bring you guys the best tutorials that I can. So I hope that you guys have a great day.